Hello and welcome to another episode of TEVAtalk. And we are freshly after the end of the Toronto Auto Show, also known as Canadian International Auto Show, or CIAS, 2019 edition. So we wanted to quickly give you our impressions for those of you who have not attended and have not seen it. And give you some comparisons with the previous Paris and Detroit auto shows. So our first remark was that the show is much bigger than Detroit. I believe, and I think you will agree, that it was a little bit smaller than the Paris show, square footage wise. But there were more manufacturers present than in Detroit, for example. So all the German luxury manufacturers were there. And they brought some nice electric cars with them that will be launching in Canada later this year. Let's start perhaps with some of the other manufacturers.
Well, actually, before we start with Volkswagen, the first presentation at the show was AJAC, and they actually awarded the Jaguar I-Pace as the Canadian Utility Vehicle of the Year. And so now is VW.
Yeah, they basically recycled an older concept that was launched 2 years ago. It's called ID Cross, which is basically a crossover small SUV concept, full electric, that is supposed to be launching or starting production in 2020. So next year, most likely, though it won't make it here until 2021. That vehicle is supposed to be made in their US factory. Volkswagen did not mention anything about their plug-in hybrids, but recently there were rumors that the Tiguan Coupe, which hasn't been launched yet, might be available as a plug-in hybrid, and it will be made in the US as well. But again, no confirmation of that. There were just some of the recent rumors. So the next one, we visited Hyundai and Kia stands, basically the same vehicles that we saw in Detroit and in Paris, with the only difference that the Soul EV was actually open, where in Detroit it was locked up. We couldn't get inside, so we were able to actually sit in the Soul EV inside, take some pictures, 360, etc. But of course we weren't able to drive it yet. So as far as Hyundai and Kia are concerned, besides the Kona EV, which we know is priced from the high 40s, but the only one that's actually available now to order and buy is the premium model, which is 52,000. We found one recently at a dealership in Toronto asking 53,000. The cheaper versions will be available later on, hopefully later this year.
But the Soul EV and Hyundai Nexo, both of them don't have an official Canadian price, unfortunately.
So Niro EV and Soul EV did not have the Canadian price yet, basically. Of course, Nexo, we don't even know if it's going to be offered in Ontario because we don't have a hydrogen infrastructure for it.
Except for that one in Mississauga. Very likely it will be just coming to BC and Quebec.
So the Niro EV was announcing a range of 385 kilometers on their stand, and not very far away from there was the Nissan stand with the new Leaf E Plus showing 363 kilometers. So slightly smaller battery. I believe the Leaf was going to be 60, where Kona EV is 64, so a slightly smaller battery.
The Leaf E Plus, I think precisely, is 62 kilowatt hour.
62, yeah. So slightly smaller than, and hence the slightly shorter range than the Kona EV. Instead of 385, they were showing 363 kilometers electric range. Of course, that's all in ideal conditions. Nissan also brought the concept.
Leaf Nismo RC, which is pretty much a fully operational race car. And they had some pretty impressive specs, 322 horsepower and 462 pound-feet of torque.
So we did not see the other concept that they had in Detroit, the full electric concept, the IMS, did not make it to Toronto, unfortunately. They will be launching some other concepts in Geneva in actually next week.
Yeah, Geneva is going to be full of electric cars.
Yeah, so unfortunately Toronto did not have any new electric car launches. They basically manufacturers brought electric cars that were launched elsewhere, and we were hoping to learn some of the pricing for Canada for some of those electric cars. However, no pricing was announced on any of them. That hasn't been announced before.
Right.
Subaru was a disappointment again. We looked for the Crosstrek plug-in hybrid both in Detroit and here, and it was not. It was absent from both shows. So we still don't know when it's coming and what the pricing is going to be like.
Yeah, I was hoping to see the Crosstrek PHEV debut at the Montreal Auto Show. That didn't happen, but then we were hoping for the Toronto Auto Show, and again, that still didn't happen. So maybe sometime later this year.
Might be delayed, yes, might be delayed. Yeah. And it might be a limited market availability, such as California, Quebec, and BC, before it makes it to other states and Ontario.
Yeah. I mean, the range of the Crosstrek PHEV isn't, that impressive. It's 30 kilometers or 17 miles, but still it's a normal plug-in hybrid that we should have at some point, right?
Well, it's basically a Prius Prime, except it has all-wheel drive.
All right, yeah.
Okay, so then of course, what else did we see? Toyota was.
I went to the Toyota stand at the Toronto Auto Show, and they had two electric-ish vehicles. The first one was the Fine Comfort Ride concept, and it's essentially just a fuel cell concept car. And they say that they wanted it to have a range of 1,000 kilometers, which is very ambitious, but still it's a fuel cell vehicle. It's electric, but again, with the whole infrastructure thing, it's going to be a little hard for them to have that kind of vehicle here in Ontario.
And of course, everybody's upset about their self-charging electric advertising campaign for their hybrids. They're just trying to justify the fact that they don't really have any full electric cars to offer people, and hence they are pushing their hybrids and calling them self-charging electrics, which is completely ridiculous.
Yeah. Infinity was there. I mean, again, it's the same concept as we saw in Detroit, the QX inspiration concept. So if you want to see what we said about that car, you can check out our previous episode of TEVAtalk.
So from the Germans, the Mercedes was there again with EQC. Still no details on availability. Most likely it'll be launched in 2020 in Europe, so probably it won't make it here until 2021. The car has very similar specs to I-Pace and e-tron. Basically 402 horsepower. It has the smallest battery pack of the three. It's only 80 kilowatt hour battery. Mm-hmm. They're estimating the range to be 400 kilometers, which we don't believe it's gonna be that much in EPA. Most likely the 400 kilometer range is WLTP, the European standard. Once it makes it here for approval by EPA or Transport Canada, it most likely will be somewhere in the mid 300s for the range. Simply because much bigger batteries in the e-tron and I-Pace have the 400 kilometer range, and they are very similar sized vehicles.
Yeah, but they do also say that on level 2, it's going to recharge from 0 to 100% in 10 hours from a 80 kilowatt hour battery. I don't think that's that bad.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty fast level to charging for an electric car. Of course, Audi brought their e-tron. Audi was there with their e-tron. They launched it here for Canada. 95 kilowatt hour battery pack and 400 kilometer range, which seems realistic. The price is been set at 90,000 Canadian dollars, so it's about $4,000 more than the I-Pace. Mm-hmm. So we basically knew that already. No other surprises. Volvo brought all of their plug-in hybrids. The only surprise there, and they didn't even put much focus on that, was they brought for the first time a Volvo S60 Polestar plug-in hybrid. Mm-hmm. Pricing again has not been announced, and other than that, they brought their existing plug-in hybrids, the XC60, XC90, and the S90. The V60s will not be brought here in a plug-in hybrid, same like the V90. Unfortunately, V90 is available as a plug-in hybrid in Europe, but not here in Canada, which is quite unfortunate. GM was there. GM was there with both the Bolt and the Volt. So our members had quite a big laugh at the fact that they're exhibiting Volt, which is has been cancelled before the show.
Yeah.
And they're still advertising it and showing it.
Well, at this point, they just want to get rid of their inventory.
Yeah. So hopefully they'll be giving pretty good deals.
And to end on a more positive note, there was an electric Bugatti Chiron in the form of Lego, of course. And I think that was pretty cool because at least I think it shows that Bugatti is at least open to the idea of having an electric car sometime in the future. So
I think
it's pretty cool.
Just to come back to Volvo for a second, of course, since the show, Volvo and its Polestar arm has launched a wonderful electric car called the Polestar 2, which is supposed to compete with Model 3, but that was launched after the show. But it's a very big news that we reported on recently. It's supposed to be priced around the same as Tesla Model 3, offering 400 horsepower, so very similar specs. Unfortunately, the bad news is that the car won't be produced for another year. So by that time, Tesla and others will be offering many other exciting electric cars as well.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it.
I think that was pretty much it. Of course, BMW also brought their usual culprits, etc., etc. But other than that, really not much else new. So the show was quite nice. So we really thoroughly enjoyed it. We had a chat with Mitsubishi, but who will be launching an electric concept in Geneva, but officially they didn't want to offer us any information on that car. So I guess we'll report back on the Geneva show next week sometime.
Yep.
Thanks very much for watching.
Thank you.